Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Technology Services webinar series. My name is Andrew Nierenhausen from Technology Services. This webinar is being recorded, so if you want to watch it again or share it with your staff, you are able to do that. And a link will be sent out after the webinar has ended, so you can access that video. You'll also get a very brief survey about the webinar, and it would be really helpful for us if you were able to answer just a few questions about how we do today. Also, please feel free to ask any questions that pop up as we go along, but I am going to answer those questions at the end of the webinar. My handy slide here says that Laura is going to be joining us today, but it's just me, so I'm not able to check in the questions as I go along. Excuse me. So today we are talking about a topic that I hope you have all heard of, even if you haven't had a chance to try it out yet, and that would be Leap. So Leap is a web-based version of Polaris. So if you have ever used Polaris, then a lot of what we cover today should be at least somewhat familiar to you. And if you're new to Polaris or Leap, then we'll show you a little bit about what these services do. And one of the big reasons that we wanted to talk about Leap right now is that it is so versatile. While you need to be at a library workstation to use Polaris, at your desk or circulation desk, Polaris is a little bit tied down. You can access Leap from any web browser. And so that means that you can log into Leap from a laptop or an iPad as you're moving around the library. You can do this from home. You can do this on the road. My favorite examples of Leap being used away from the library have been libraries that are doing things like bookmobiles, book bicycles, pop-up libraries, showing up at farmers markets and county fairs. As long as you have a Wi-Fi connection, you can do circulation, register new cards, help patrons with their account, all of this outside of the library. And for those libraries that have battery-operated wireless Wi-Fi hubs, of which I know there are at least a few, you can bring these functions pretty much anywhere. If you have an iPad and a Wi-Fi hub, you can do circulation anywhere that you get signal. So it opens up a lot of opportunities for things that you can do with Leap. So today we're going to take a bit of a tour through Leap, show you what it looks like and what it can do. It's going to be a pretty quick tour. We're not going to dive into a lot of the deeper stuff in Leap. Leap, much like Polaris, is a pretty heavy-duty system that can do a lot of things. So we're just going to cover kind of a tour of Leap and what you can find there. So the first thing to note about Leap is that it requires the correct permissions in Polaris. If you haven't tried using Leap yet, you can give it a try after our session today, but you might want to contact us at helpdesk@yrl.ab.ca, and we can update those permissions on your Polaris account very quickly. It just takes a second. I think most new accounts that are created now, if not all new accounts, come standard with Leap permissions, but there are some older accounts from before Leap was as common that might not have the Leap permissions on those accounts. So you might need to just let us know, and we can do that for you right away. So once you have your permissions, you should be able to log in. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at Leap. So the URL here is a bit of a mouthful, so I'm not just going to read this out for you. It's a little bit weird getting to Leap. There's not a link for it on TrackPack or anything like that. I find the fastest way to get to Leap is just going to Google and searching Leap TrackPack or TrackPack Leap, and it should be the first link that comes up. Once you do get access to it, then you probably want to bookmark it. I will note that from time to time, I've been contacted by people who are having trouble logging into Leap, and it's because they are logging or trying to log into Peace Regional Library's Leap account or Marigold or something like that. So you just want to make sure that you're at the leap.trackpack.ab.ca. So this is ours here. So, excuse me again. The login here asks for your domain name, which might seem a little bit confusing, but once you know what this means, it's pretty easy to remember. There's two ways that you can fill this out, and I'm going to demonstrate with my username. But you can see here we have username at domain or domain /username. So my username is YRL A Nierenhausen. Yours is going to be something similar, starting with a Y, and then your library code, and then your name portion. And so this is probably what you're going to use to log into Polaris. The domain for everyone is going to be YRLS. So in our case here, we would have YRL A Nierenhausen at YRLS or YRLS /YRL A Nierenhausen. And I know that can be a mouthful, especially my name. So here's an example, YRL A Nierenhausen at YRLS. And then you're just going to log in with your regular Polaris password. Once you do that, you're going to be asked which branch and workstation. So your branch is just whatever library you're at, and this is going to be all of the track libraries are going to show up here. So you just select your library. And when you pick your branch here, it's going to change your options under the workstation tab. If you don't know your workstation, whatever computer you're on, or if you're you may be logging into Leap for the first time from another device. If you're using a regular library computer or a laptop or something that's inventoried, you should have a white sticker somewhere on your computer that tells you the workstation name. If you can't find that, or if you are on another device that's not your regular work computer or tablet, that's totally fine. You just need to select a workstation. It doesn't actually matter which one you select. This is more of a statistics keeping thing to let us and Polaris know which workstations are accessing it and occasionally are making changes to item records or patron records. But as long as you're logging in with your regular Polaris account, no problem. So we'll select our branch and workstation and we will log in. So now that we're in, we can start looking around a little bit here. One point to make before we dive in, and I'm going to highlight this as we work through a few different pages. When you are working on a record, whether it's a patron record or an item record, you just want to make sure that you close the form when you're finished. Otherwise, that record is going to stay locked. You may have had this experience with desktop Polaris. Maybe you're trying to renew a patron card only to see that somebody else has that patron record open. All of the fields are grayed out and you can't make any changes. So to avoid that from happening in Leap, we're just going to get in the habit of closing the records when we're done with them. And I'll show you some cool tricks for how to make sure you're doing that. So the two most common functions that you're probably going to be doing in Polaris or Leap are set up with their own buttons here at the top of the screen. And the first of these being check-in. So let's take a look at that. So just like Polaris, the check-in feature has a bunch of different modes. So the normal check-in right here allows you to scan a barcode. So it's actually interesting. I'm in the boardroom at YRL right now, and I'm on a laptop. So I don't have a printer or a scanner here with me, but I'm logged into Leap, even though I wouldn't be able to access Polaris. I was actually thinking maybe I should do this webinar from home to demonstrate. But so I'm here and I don't have a scanner or a printer. But if you have USB scanners or printers, you could bring those with you if you're traveling around or using Leap outside of your library. I'm just going to punch something in here by hand. I'm going to check in an item. Okay, and then that's a successful check-in. And we have our item record here. And yeah, so if you are connected to a receipt printer, this would print the receipt as normal, just like it would do in Polaris. And again, you can use USB connected scanners and printers if you wanted to use those on the road. So some of the other features, the other modes in check-in, we've got bulk mode, which just allows you to scan in a whole stack of books, check them in at the same time. So you're not printing off an individual receipt for each one. You got in-house check-in, which helps to keep track of usage for items that aren't necessarily circulating out of the library, but just being used in-house. We've got the inventory function, which you can use to scan through and inventory your collection. You can also check in books with this function really at any time. And all it's going to do is going to update their most recent inventory date. I feel like this feature gets overlooked a little, so I figured I'd point it out both for Polaris and Leap. I think the perfect example of how to use this day to day is, you find a book under the bookshelf that you don't know how long it's been there. It's not a bad idea just to go to inventory mode, give it a quick scan, and that's just going to let Polaris know that the book is still around. You could do the same thing when you are checking in with the regular check-in. That'll give it a more recent update status, but giving it a quick inventory scan is not a bad idea either. Then we have the missing part check-in. So this is for multi-part items that are returned with a missing part, and shelf ready. So shelf ready, I don't actually have access to, and I'm not sure if you would either. I think this might be a bit of a cataloging thing. I know what it's for is items that are going from in processing to ready to circulate. So you would scan them in with the shelf ready function. One function that you can do in Leap that you can't do in Polaris, which I've actually had to use a few times and has been incredibly useful, is to load barcodes from a file. So if we go into actions over here, you see we have this load from file option. So if you have a text file or a spreadsheet or a CSV file where you have all of your barcodes listed, you can upload that here and have them all checked in at once. So this is especially useful if you need to do offline circulation. If your power goes out, or you have an internet outage, or you are out of the library for some reason, you can scan or type and enter your barcodes into a spreadsheet or a Word file. And once you're reconnected to the internet, you just load that file into Leap and check it in. So this is also great for inventories, and you'll see that even from the different modes, you can use this feature. If for some reason you were, inventorying part of your library, doing shelf location or collection, you could be using walking around with an iPad and a scanner, and you could just be scanning right into the inventory function. But if for some reason you weren't doing that, you could scan into a spreadsheet, and then you could upload that spreadsheet to be inventoried at a later date. And you'll also see that under normal here, it shows that we have one check-in, and it just keeps track of all of the items that you've checked in this instance. After you've checked in an item, you can click on this item record really anywhere along the bar here. It's going to open up our item record. If this had been checked out to a patron, the patron name would be here, and you could click on that and go to the patron record, which is convenient. So we're just going to go to this item record. And this is going to show all of the same information that you would see on Polaris for the item record. In the middle of the page here, you see we have this row of options. And some of these correspond to the work form in Polaris, but some of them are a bit more unique. For example, we have the record sets here. And this is just going to show you all of the record sets that the item is a part of. So that one stood out to me. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, so we can see the circulation, that's what it defaulted to, but it's going to have all the same information, material type, shelf location, things like that, history, notices, all the same information is going to be here. And that's going to be a bit of a refrain today. So yeah, all the things that you can do in Polaris, you can still do here, and occasionally a few extra things. It may just be in a different location. So for example, we have the actions and links menus at the top of the screen here, which allow us to do a lot of the same functions like adding items to record sets and looking at the holds queue. So while we're in this item record, it would be tempting while we're working to just go up to the search bar here and look for another record. Maybe look for a Patron account. But as I mentioned earlier, we want to close our record first. And you can do that here with this big red close button. But if we don't, and we start searching around for something else, I'm actually just going to drop off to the Leap homepage here by clicking the Leap icon. Then there is a way to make sure that those records still get closed. So in the top left here, we've got this little hamburger menu. And if we click on that menu icon, it's going to show us all of the work forms that we currently have open. And you'll see that our check-in form is still open, and the item record form is also still open. And so you can think of these kind of like browser windows. So if you were using Polaris on the desktop, you would have the check-in form open, and then you would have the item record window open. And this is just a way to kind of visualize that while you're in the browser. And so you can click on these to go to either work form. So actually, let's just go to these and let's close them out. We don't want to use check-in anymore, and we don't want this item record. We can go back to this menu, and the next tab here is recent. So if we click on recent, we can see that the item record that we worked on is here. I think this is super useful because I do this all the time where I'm working on a Patron record and I close it and I go to send an email and I realize I don't know the patron's email address and maybe I don't have their barcode copied so I can paste it, and then I have to go figure out how to find them again. In Leap, you can look at your recent work forms, and that's information is going to pop up right here. So super useful. So that's going through check-in. And then the next most common work form is going to be new patron. So once again, this work form contains all the same fields as the regular Polaris. It's just laid out a little bit differently. So we'll scroll through here. All the same information, barcode, the name, email, any other mandatory fields that you want to fill out for your library. Oh, there we go. You can fill all that information out, and then once you're done, you just hit save on the patron registration. We're not going to create a patron today, so I'm just going to close that. You can also create a new patron from this new menu up at the top here. So if we click on this, we can create a new bibliographic record, patron record, record set. And this is just like the file new in Polaris, or if you hit that blank page icon to create something new in Polaris. And then next to this new dropdown is the utilities dropdown. And from here, you can see a few functions that would be probably spread out a little bit across the normal Polaris app. Things like holds queue, pick list, request manager, print notices. If you're dealing with these regular functions that need to be checked daily or weekly, they're all in one place here in the utilities menu. There's also a few cataloging options here, but these probably aren't of interest to most users. Next to utilities is the help menu. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go to Leap Topics. And this is going to open up a new browser tab. So this is the Leap help section, but Polaris also has a help section. You'll find in the Polaris menu bar that there is a help option there. And if you haven't had a look at it, you definitely should. If you are ever confused by something that is happening in Polaris or Leap, I highly recommend opening up the help tab. And for Leap, we have this, what's called Leap Topics. And you can do a keyword search. So if there's some function that you're trying to do and you need a little bit more information about it, maybe you have a question, you can find that here and it's going to tell you step by step how to do what you're looking for. And really great part of this is that all of the major concepts are hyperlinked. So, if you're reading along and you're not sure about something, there's usually going to be a hyperlink that will explain that function to you. We also have related functions. So if there's something that's causing you a bit of trouble, I highly recommend opening the help tab and giving it a keyword search. Pop back over to Leap here. And probably the last major thing to look at here is going to be the search bar and the find tool. So in Polaris, if you want to search for a patron, you need to bring up either the patron registration search form or the patron status search form. And then you have separate searches for item records, bib records, record sets, etc. So in Leap, you can just make a keyword search in the search bar, and you're going to get both patron and bibliographic records there. So for an example here, let's look up our favorite test account. Look for Ted Danson. So we're going to get a variety of options here. So we're going to get a bunch of similar names. If our keyword showed up in email addresses or street addresses, those would show up here. Anything close to our search. And we're also going to get bibliographic results. So for these examples, Ted Danson's probably showing up as an author or a contributor. And then we have other keyword uses of Danson here. So let's start by looking at our Ted Danson patron account. And when we open this up, we're going to get these messages that the patron account is expired. So it's your blocks will pop up here, which is nice. It lets you know right away. And yeah, we can see at the top here that the patron has some blocks and some notes. So we'll just take a look at those blocks. This is just a kind of blank one that we put here, and then our expiry blocks. And we have notes here as well, just a test. And to get back to the regular patron information, we're just going to click on registration here, and it's going to open that up again. So you can also see from this bar along the top and then the registration on the left side. Oh, there we go. That all of the patron information is in this one work form. So whereas in Polaris, you have the patron registration form and the patron status form, all of that's going to be in one place here. For the most part, your patron registration information is going to be listed down the left side. And of course, this is your patron's personal information, their barcode, their address, their email address, that sort of thing. And then your patron status is going to be along this bar here. And this is your patron history, their notification history, what items they have out, things along those lines. And I should also point out while we're here, so So on the homepage here, we have the check-in and the new patron. You may have been wondering where checkout is. The way Leap works is actually you will look for the patron account first. So if you were out and about, you would scan the barcode into the scan up here. You would open up your patron account, and then you would hit this checkout button. And then you would just scan your items in, and that would check out directly to the patron. So it's going to take a minute here just to load all the patron information again. So I'm going to close this out, and we're going to take a look. The other way to find this information is going to be through the find tool. And actually, just before we do that, we'll do another quick search for Danson here. Oh. So let's see, we'll get that. There we go, get our suggestions. And so we'll select one of these. And so that was one of our bibliographic results for Ted Danson. And so this is going to bring up bibliographic records. These items probably have Ted Danson as listed as a contributor or something like that in the bibliographic record. You may notice that we're in the find tool here and that this is a bibliographic record search. So if you click on any of these items at the top here, they are actually options. So we can change this to be an item record search, a patron search, anything like that, any of the different work form types. We also have the basic search here, and we can swap this out. Same with our filters and then our phrase. So we can switch this over to patron here, and then we can look for Danson again, and there we go. And then we get the patron record. So this is getting here through the search bar, but if we open up the find tool, we're actually going to see pretty much the same thing. You may notice here that this defaulted to record set. Now this is just because I have this set to record set, but if we click here, you can see that I have record set with a star next to it. If maybe you are mostly working with item records, you can just have this defaulted to item record. We'll save that. We'll just close out the work form. I'll open that again, and now you see that this search is defaulted to an item record search. You can change this at any time. You just need to click on that item record and select what you're searching for. And we'll just give you one example of an item record search here. One feature that I think is pretty cool about Leap is the recommendations. So this isn't something that you get in Polaris. You saw from our using the search bar up here, if we search in Danson, we get some options, things that show up close. Same thing's going to happen if we do an item record search. And this is really great for things with an ambiguous spelling. Maybe there's a synonym or something that you haven't thought of. So searching this way is good. Gives you some options. So we'll close this out. And one last thing I want to just highlight again. So in this menu for our work forms, you can see that I've closed out of all the work forms that I was using. And if we check in the recent tab, we'll see all of the work forms that we looked at today. So this was the item record that we started with, and Mr. Ted Danson's patron account is here as well. So just a reminder that this is a really useful tool for finding those recent work forms that you've had open. So this is a pretty high level overview of what you can do in Leap. We didn't get too deep, too granular into all the things that you can do. Of course, there's a ton of specific tasks that you can do in Leap. Everything that you can do in Polaris, essentially. Maybe you're bulk changing items or looking for patron notifications or whatever it is that you're regularly doing in Polaris or Leap. But hopefully this quick tour is just helps get you familiar with what Leap looks like, how it feels, and some of the common functions that you might be using from day to day. So, are there any questions about Leap? Any questions about accessing Leap, or any functions that you'd be curious if you can do? Let me know in the chat. Christy, I see you have hand raised. I just got to figure out where the Q&A or the chat box is. Do you have access to the chat there? Oh, it doesn't look like it. Okay, well, there's no questions coming in. I'll hang out here for another minute just to see if anything else comes in. If you do have any questions about Leap, or if you're watching this at a later date, do not hesitate to contact us. You can reach me at helpdesk@yrl.ab.ca, but really anyone you contact at Yellowhead should be able to help you or redirect you to me. If we need to set up your permissions, if you have any trouble logging in, if you have questions about functions that you can do in Leap, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help for this. So thanks so much for joining us today. The webinar has been recorded and is going to be sent out to everyone who registered after the webinar, and it's also going to be available on YouTube. Our next technology services webinar is going to be on August 18th, and we are going to be discussing Keeper Password Manager. So if you have any questions about using Keeper or getting started with a password manager, we're going to cover the basics and show you how to get set up with that. So thank you again so much, and have a wonderful afternoon.